Let's start the recording. Okay. What else am I forgetting? Turn these off. So many buttons, buttons, a couple more buttons. Sure. Okay, I believe I'm just about to get going here. I'll just start with the planets video. Okay, just getting all unmuted and set up here. Looks like we're ready to go. And welcome everyone to the Keshe Plasma Reactor Group. for Wednesday, November 21st, 2018. And once again, we are gathered here. Seems like the weeks are flying by, and it's once again time to do a little show and tell of some of the inventions or devices or ideas or concepts or stray thoughts that have we've encountered over the last week or two. And we'll deal with them all in this Keshe Plasma Reactor Group, because that's what we do. We look at all kinds of things, and preferably with the Keshe sort of bent to it, you might say. Now, just let me finish getting set up here, make sure everything is all okay. I believe that's, well, as far as I can tell, where all systems go here. I've got a few attendees I have to bring in, just bear with me. There we go. And just make an adjustment on that chime. Bingo. Alrighty, well, we usually like to start off this group by asking people if they have anything they'd like to present to our little show and tell group here, or something you'd like to bring up to discuss, perhaps a question, or maybe you got your thumb caught in your reactor and trying to figure out how to remove it and something like that. I don't know. Stella says, let's synchronize our souls in peace and wisdom. All right, sounds good. We'll synchronize on the hour now. Close enough. Okay, any one of our panelists, or got an invisible attendee that's not showing up in my list somehow. Okay, if you're an attendee and you are anonymous somehow, just put your hand up if you need to connect. It's a bit odd. Anyway. Okay, does anyone have any, you don't have any flying devices, obviously, that you're raring to show here at this particular time, so we will have to back down a bit and go for questions, comments.
Yesterday I got a comment. A way to re-energize the Gans is to put them into a austerizer for about 40 seconds, and that re-energizes them immediately.
By austerizer, you mean like a good blender, a super blender kind of thing?
Yeah, well, yes, a blender or a vortex, a good vortex, yeah.
Right. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense to me. Mr. Keshe has recommended that several times as well. And or one of those hand blender kind of things, just to get it really stirred up good. And
yeah,
when you also
put it up into under the sun for some time also.
that could work. One thing about the blender, especially the ones that are the higher horsepower ones, there are some that are 1 horsepower, I think even 1.5 horsepower, ridiculous amount of power. But they're able to actually, they can blend so fast and so intensely that it can actually boil water after a few minutes of blending at high speed on some of them. And but besides that, you're introducing, when you blend at high speed, you're introducing a lot of air bubbles, micro air bubbles into the liquid, which is quite interesting because they found some particularly strange qualities for what's called nanobubbles, which is beyond micro, and you get into even smaller bubbles, is nano. John, I think you might have to mute your microphone when you're not speaking there because it's feeding back. Hear a bit of an echo there. Thank you. The blending will, of course, mix things up and so on, the turbulence. But the micro bubbles, which if you go beyond micro, like I was mentioning, into nano, which are the tiny, weest of bubbles, and you can actually introduce some of them into the mix. And what can happen then is the bubbles can actually stay in the liquid for hours and even up to days, in some cases weeks, up to a month or so at a time. And when there's particular processes you can use nowadays, there's a nanopore stone you can use that's a burnt carbon stone. It has nanopores in it. If you pump air through it, it generates the tiny weest of bubbles. And these bubbles, some of them, the larger ones, will go to the surface and pop and so on like normal bubbles. But the actual nanobubbles stay in the liquid because they're so small, they don't become buoyant in the liquid. And so they just kind of bounce around, and it can look like it's the liquid, the water's turning milky. It actually turns it the cloudy milkiness from the air bubbles, tiny nanobubbles. And then you've got something that's got some special qualities. You've got something that's, for example, if you were to water a plant with water like that, it's already got the air built right into, it's supercharging the water with air. So it's like it becomes ready to react. It reacts easier with if you were to mix up chemicals in the water or to use it for drinking water and that kind of thing. These nanobubbles have special qualities, like I say, and they can actually implode and give off rays that could be useful, and they turn into hydroxide and what do you call it, ozone, when they transform themselves in the water. And then you can end up with a good sterilization process or decontamination. It could be, I think it's an important thing that could work alongside of the Ganses to make them much more potent and more useful for certain purposes like decontamination or sterilization or for ingestion and so on. So definitely, I think that's a good idea. So you can rejuvenate the GANs or perhaps even supercharge it.
What we haven't talked much about is the Gans of Gans. What are the effects potentialize the Ganses? But nothing, not much has been commented on this.
Well, I guess it's getting into a pretty subtle realm as far as, you know, if you have the GANs of the GANs of the GANs, would we recognize it more than we would the GANs itself, or less than the GANs?
Yeah, that's an interesting question. And the second potentializing the GANs of GANs of GANs, is it made the same way as the GANs of GANs, or what? I haven't listened to any of these comments.
I haven't gotten into the GANs of GANs, let alone the GANs of the GANs of the GANs and beyond to the fourth, fifth, sixth powers or whatever it is, fourth, fifth, and sixth dimensions. But perhaps someone out there has some information on that or has experimented with it. I think there's a number of people who have.
We should have extra potentialized GANs waters with that. I imagine so. I've worked
Mhm.
20 years ago with waters that had very much more potency then, much more higher concentration, let's put it this way, and they were
Mhm.
very interesting.
Yeah, water is a fascinating subject, and you're still finding out amazing factoids about water that are simply amazing.
They used to call them super ionized waters.
Super ionized. Well, you can have.
Actually, we have it, this GANs of GANs and of GANs, because when you have, for example, GANs of CO2, zinc oxide, or same GANs, you take you in the jar, in the bottle, you have interact between, you forming another layer of GANs. It's created between these. You have already gas of gas. Depend how long you putting in the jar and leave it alone in same condition.
What do you mean, Dan? Dan, it depends how long you. What do you mean by how long that it's in the jar or whatever? Can you explain that a bit?
I imagine he means let it work for some longer time, and that'll create new ganses. Maybe putting some small dikes down below so the different ganses will separate each other, and that'll create new fields. That maybe do this work.
It's not only field, it's create the gas. It's like a two bottle, no? You have in the middle another bottle with salt water or another gas. You
Mm-hmm.
create the field, but create also the gas of gas between left and right. It's not only field. You create the matter, the gas.
Right. So, have you been successful in doing that, Dan?
It's one experiment 1 year ago or this year. It's with hemoglobin with gas. I like so much looking in what's happening between my gas. Which I have a bunch of this bottle with gas for see how interact. In some bottle, I notice it's more GANs or exchange GANs of not only like a color or shape. you see it's another thing inside. You notice in periodic table, you have natrium, sodium. You're putting one neutron, you obtain magnesium. It's one neutron, it's one hydrogen. It's interact. Kalium also. Why it's so powerful? It's always change one neutron or deuterium. It's in same manner obtain when you have a Gans of Gans, you obtain field and Gans between.
These are interesting concepts. Yes, that's very interesting to delve into these experiences.
Well, people have definitely tried creating GANs by having the GANs beside the GANs water and GANs beside a container, for example. Sometimes with salt water, and sometimes I think perhaps even with distilled water. I think Alex has some, Alex Skoric has some experience with that as well.
It would be interesting to ask Evelyn what experience she has, as she's got so many. She's got over 300 different Ganses already, so that would be the way those interact between each other.
Wow, imagine. Wow. She must have noticed quite a few things over that. Be good to get that documented somehow. 300 Ganses.
In the French group a few days ago, there's debate video of Mr. Keshe from Seawater, the water Gans of water, about sea of the ocean. Only in this particular moment, I realized what Mr. Keshe said. You have all the elements from the universe, not the universe, from the earth inside. You have layers of GANs, and you can utilize for making another thing. It's about how to figure what layer of GANs I have, because I have all the elements, how to create the condition for utilize this.
Well, the thing is, why would you select a technique that has so many elements that aren't part of what's in the body, what's natural in the body? So we end up.
My problem is when Mr. Keshe is saying, choose careful what it's in the reactor, what element used for seeing the, not the result, for seeing interaction. But also Mr. Keshe is saying, if body take what he need, it's not harmful, but you need to understand what's happening inside. For example, I have a seawater. I'm making gas. I have all the elements in field and the state of gas inside. I have the neutron, I have all the elements from this earth. And what's happened when you know lead interact in one way, aluminium interact in another way, cadmium interact also in another way. It's for understanding what's happened and what I choose to use, what field, what GANs. Because when you have to so many layers and you don't know what is inside, it's like an empty box of universe. You have the field, but what field you use for what purpose?
Yeah, well, that's the whole thing. And if you want to just create something that's in the body, you might want to start with just the things that are natural to the body and not introduce things that have to be eliminated later, perhaps, like lead's not too useful generally inside the body, and some of the other heavy elements and metals and so on. But and what about the also in seawater? What about the bacteria and viruses and so on? There's tens of thousands per milliliter in that realm as well. How much of that would you like to invite into the body?
Do you invite them? As Mr. Keshe says, the bacteria are live animals, let's put it this way, and viruses are energies. But you take what you need and you don't take what you don't need. Now, the seawater has all the elements, as Dan was saying, in the earth. And we come from the water. We have all the components in the concentrations normally the seawater has. So much so that it is said that our blood is the same concentration as in the sea. The only thing it doesn't have that the same percentage. It's 5 times less. So the important thing was when you do the almost of the seawater, you've got the Gans of water. When you do the almost of our component, let's not use the word as I've been told so. You've got all the components of your body. So those are different ways of working with the different ganses, these ganses. I don't know if you've, do you know how to use it or make the almost seawater? You use caustic soda and take it to a pH of 10.7 or 10.78. I don't know how accurate that really is. 1/100th of a pH is pretty difficult to measure in with any instrument, I imagine.
Well, that's the whole problem with trying to make ormus, is if you're off a little bit, then you will be making something that will not be what you were intended, and that can have some pretty bad side effects. So that's generally why this whole ormus thing, there's people that have had good responses and people that have had not so good responses. There's people that know what they're doing and ones that just sort of try to replicate and may or may not hit it right. Because apparently if you're off a little bit with the pH, then you can create some byproducts with that process that you don't want, like heavy metals and so on.
When you do the almost of your product, you won't have any side effects because you've already metabolized all the products. It's your own. It identifies it as your own, and you don't use a caustic soda. You use the carbonate of soda, so it's not as aggressive, and it's a lighter GANs also. It's not as compact as the seawater GANs. And you've also got the fields of your antiviruses or antibacterials products you're creating inside your body.
Mr. Keshe is saying it's interesting, but I don't know how to look from this phrase. When speaking, depend what temperature putting when you make with hydroxide, no? In this seawater. Depend each element have a specific temperature. It's how to colligate from, for example, I can activate field of, I don't know, copper. It's 316, I don't know what degrees. Silver have another temperature specific for melting or for flowing. Perhaps it is needed when you put in from, I don't know, 80 degrees, you create specific gradient, specific field, specific gas, layer of gas in this water. When you put 200 degrees, you create another thing. I don't know. I don't know what.
Well, we do know one thing, that the amino acids, and the COHN, Mr. Cohn as is known as, it would make sense that those entities would like to have a temperature that would be similar to our body temperature in order for that reaction to take place, you would think. I mean, that would make sense to, perhaps we should be keeping our GANS making operation at body temperature, which is quite a bit warmer than so-called room temperature. And Caroline Keshe has talked about this recently as well, mentioning that it's important to keep the GANS kit, the box or whatever, the plastic box with liquid, at a warm temperature. And what's the body temperature? Is about 96 degrees. Is that it in Fahrenheit? And what is that? What does it work out to in Celsius? Does anybody have that offhand?
36.5 from, I don't know, when you have a fever, you have a 40, 41, 42, 42.
Yeah, normal temperature. Normal centigrade temperature is 36, 36.5. And the Ganses normally work between 20 and 25, don't they?
Generally, that would be considered room temperature, and that's what most people would do it at. I found that it seemed to go quite a bit faster if the GANS was warmer. I think that would be more, there's certain processes that go on at that, or conversions, and that's what makes our body temperature that temperature. I'm not sure the process, how that works, but it's a particular temperature that enables certain nano-type or GANS processes to take place inside our body. So it makes sense that that would be a good temperature to do the experiments at, where you're creating new materials.
In chemistry, we're told that in centigrades, every 10 degrees, when you increase the temperature in 10 degrees, the chemistry process is 4 times as fast.
4 times, or just doubles, like it's 4 times as fast?
Yeah, it must be double when you measure it in what do you mean?
Fahrenheit, perhaps. Yeah, could be. Yeah, that's interesting. Generally speaking, the chemical reactions do progress faster at higher temperatures. catalysts work a lot more efficiently and so on. So in that sense, it would make sense to have our experiments a little warmer, perhaps, if we want a faster production. On the other hand, maybe you want a slower production and keep it cool, but make it over, 2 months or something. It might have a better effect for certain things. It's like a fine wine. You can have wine and put accelerants in and have your wine in days or whatever, or you can have it naturally aged, and it might take a year or 2 or 3 or more to age to the point where it's preferable.
I understand that.
Sorry, go ahead.
We're talking about making. Can you hear me?
Yep, go ahead, Dimitri.
Can you hear me? Yeah, I understand that we're talking about making ganses that are more, the temperature is more harmonious with the body. But I do recall speaking to, oh gosh, Lisa McDonald. When I was talking to her about making magnesium GANs a long time ago, the conversation went to making GANs at different temperatures. Let's just say, for instance, it's a zinc. You make a zinc and you make it at room temperature, and then another zinc was made at a slightly different temperature, even though they're both zinc GANs. Please be quiet, even though I'm sorry.
We'll have to get that recorded and play that back for Topoly. Get some.
Even though the different temperatures, that it's a slightly different GANs. Okay, it's still zinc GANs, but it just has a slightly different field strength. And literally, this is why over the last couple of weeks I've been building shelving outside, because I wish to make my GANs outside. I can't tell you why, but I know that throughout the year, with the different temperatures, it's going to be a slightly different GANs. And also when taken into outside, because of the different seasons, it's a completely different field strength on going around the planet. So those GANs are going to be within the small window of that GANs, let's say zinc, which we're making, but it will be a wider bandwidth of spectrum of the GANs if it's made with different variables in the environment.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. Yep. And if we want to be, theoretically, if you want to be professional and consistent and have a certain degree of quality, I guess the temperature would be one of the things that would have to be carefully controlled, as well as pH and the atmosphere and the amount of salt and all the other variables. But yeah, that's something that I don't know if we've, as knowledge seekers, if we paid enough attention to that. Like, are there tests? Does anybody know of any tests that people have done to try different temperatures? Let's say that 10-degree gradient we were just talking about. And does it, double your GANs production for every 10 degrees of temperature increase? Or is it a, 2% increase in GANs for every 10-degree increase? Does it increase to a certain point and then start decreasing again with the GANs production?
Let's not forget about the strength of the fields also generated. As we're told, if separating or nearing all the plaques, the zinc and the copper plaques, we increase or decrease the strength of the fields which create the ganses.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
What Jedi just put in the chat then with the electrical flux adding electricity to the production of the GANs, that is a variable, just as temperature is a variable. Now, from my understanding, it's better to do the production.
Better to do the production.
It's heading in the temperature where it is increasing the production, but as that production increases, the field strength is changing, and there may well be a correlation between heat change and temperature. There might be a ratio between them that's consistent.
Right. Of course, even just putting 2 plates in salt water produces an electrical flux as well between them. So, and sometimes we drain that off with an LED to have less current.
That's exactly it. Exactly it, Rick.
There are so many variables to take into consideration.
Well, there are. It's true. And then we had the
it's already there. It's already created.
What's already created, Dimitri? We lost part of your communication there, I think. Breaking up.
Sorry. I was interrupting both you and John now. I do apologize. I was just saying, so, you know, in many ways, do we need to add electricity to it? That charge is literally already there, you know, and it's there naturally. It's there at the percentage it should be. And I'm sure if the salt content was higher, there'd be more of an electrical charge. And with that in mind, this time round, I feel that I will be creating, excuse me, I will be creating a CO2 with a lower salt in the saline solution.
CO2
is lower.
Sorry, you're going to be creating a CO2 with something in the saline solution?
From my understanding, I have not been able to make a CO2 yet on the first run that I have done, which was a long time ago, using a nano-coated copper plate and a zinc plate with distance between them, let's just say 25 centimeters. You should be getting yourself with a 80% zinc and a 20% CO2. But if the plates are much closer together, let's say 5 centimeters or less, you're going to get an 80% CO2. Now, from my understanding, that is a result of a decrease in the electrical flux created naturally by those plates. Because the plates are closer together, there is less electrical charge between them because there's less salt in the solution. You know, for me personally, the setup that I'm going to do to make CO2 will be the nano-coated copper and the zinc plate connected with an LED in a salt solution. I'm going to go with possibly 4 of them, a salt solution of 1%, 2%, 3%, and 4%. That will be the only variable that will have the change, as they will all be in the same environment. Now, I feel, this is yet to be put to the test, that the saline solution that has the 4% is going to make a GANS slightly quicker than the CO2 box with the 1%, as a result of a higher salt content in the solution, which is enabling transfer of the electrical charge. Rick, is putting salt in salt's a crystal, okay? Salt is a crystal, therefore it is electroconductive. That's a correct thinking, yeah?
Well, it's not the crystal that actually is conductive. Like if you take a a pile of salt, white salt crystal, I don't think you'd find it's very conductive, but it's the ions. When you mix the salt with water, then it dissolves, and you no longer have the crystals that you can see. It may still have a crystal configuration in the water, but then the sodium unlocks, instead of the NaCl, the sodium and chlorine being locked together in this crystal bonding network. Instead of being locked into a crystal, they break up and they dissolve, and you have an Na plus ion and you have a Cl minus charged ion, and they basically are floating around in the salt water, are able to interact with other things in the water. So it becomes conductive because of the ions. If you have deionized water or properly distilled water, then it won't conduct electricity. It's a good insulator, actually. On the other hand, salt water is a good conductor, so you can vary the conductance quite well through the addition of salt, and that's how they judge how much salt's in water, is basically through the conductance, through the determining the solids and so on.
Okay, thank you very much for that. It's now an understanding of a better for me. So going back to that previous conversation, the increase in salt is creating an increase in ions and allowing an increase in charge flow. That increase will result in a higher zinc being produced compared to if the ion concentration was lower and the charge was the charge was naturally lower because there's less ions in there. That's going to head more towards the CO2, is what I'm going to put to the test and hopefully create a CO2.
Yeah, I think that basically makes sense. It seems the CO2 is a little perhaps lighter and more delicate, sort of comes off first, and then the zinc comes in sort of later in this, or under more heavy electrical flow. And so it makes sense that the carbon would tend to be a lighter, sort of be made into GANs first, and then once a certain amount of that has been used up, then it would sort of jump over to the zinc and start using that as the basis. That's got to do with the amount of, basically the field strength. The field strength of the CO2 would be less than the zinc in terms of its interaction in the salt water. So, for example, if you were to do electroplating, then if you use a certain voltage, you would be able to electroplate certain substances, and if you use a higher voltage, it would tend to plate out the things that take those higher voltages. And if you just stick with the lower voltage, then you won't get the plating out of other byproducts. It'll just stick with the lower range of the element that you're looking for. If any of that made any sense. Jedi's got a bunch of comments. Go ahead, John.
I was going to add, there are two more variables we could add to all these experiments. Is if we use oxygenated water or add peroxide into the water, one is thing, and the other is adding ozone to the water.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, good. Both are good experimental ideas. The peroxide in particular is used in labs and so on, and for some experiments in nanotechnology. And it can be a very potent stuff for creating, let's say, transmutations in our boxes, something we haven't really, I think some people have experimented with that in the past, trying to get a better nano-coating using some peroxide. So many.
This is a nice idea.
How would, sorry, John, can I just ask this? When you say using a peroxide nano-coating, would you experimentation, hydrogen peroxide, H2O2, to see what happens? If it was put into, any GANs producing box, yeah, you're looking to make either a CO2 or a ZNO2, a CuO2, they're all oxides. So would just the manufacture of the production of that GANs, the field interactions going on in that box, is it going to pull the O2 off of the H2O that you put in there, the hydrogen peroxide in there? Like fields literally breaking down a chemical bonding, which obviously makes a lot of sense. And if I was to make a guess now, I'd put my money on saying yes, it would. But obviously, someone needs to do that before me to give me the answer. Otherwise, I'll let you know.
Not sure exactly how that breaks down, but another really potent molecule is the OH, or HO, depending on how you like to look at it, one way or the other. The OH, or hydroxide, it's called. It's one of the more potent molecules for dissolving, breaking up, and generally attaching or interacting with other elements. So we have sodium hydroxide, NaOH. So when you put that, mix it in with water, it becomes again the Na plus and the OH minus. And the OH minus is what gives it its basic or alkalineness. The pH scale is the H plus part of the H plus and OH minus of water. Actually, water will split into H plus and OH minus, and that's the acid and base kind of relationship. How much of the H plus is contained in the water will determine how acidic it is. The power of hydrogen, pH.
What we normally call as brown gas, which they use in cars.
Yeah, that's a little different. That's you mean like HHO, which is hydrogen and oxygen mixed together, which is Brown's gas, but they're in a what do you call it, monatomic form as well. So that's when it gets really interesting, because they're both on the edge of recombining and giving off energy, and very volatile and just raring to go to combine with virtually anything. You have the oxygen and hydrogen, two of the most potent ends of the spectrum, wanting to get together. You can imagine the tension there, and all it takes is a tiny little spark, and boom, and they combine to make water vapor, or they combine with other elements or form other functions.
Let's not forget also from the Joe cell, the product from Joe cell gives us.
Right.
It's interesting because Mr. Keshe is saying what making the oxygen from the water staying together with the hydrogen. It's not only these two molecules of water, no, atom of water. It's different, like a strain, for staying together. You don't have the same strain from two atoms of oxygen or a field of oxygen. It's a little bit different. One is higher, another is lower, for interact, for stay together. Like MAGRAV interact, magnetical and gravitational. It's like in the water you have not only hydrogen and oxygen. You have different strains. You have deuterium, you have tritium, you have all kind of spectrum of this range. Oxygen, I look in like carbon with deuterium for create oxygen, or azote, nitrogen, less one neutron or hydrogen. It's a different way for looking at it.
And then when you also consider the concept of water is actually self-ionizing, which means every roughly 20 hours, each water molecule will spontaneously split the hydrogen. So you have H2O. So it's two hydrogens, one oxygen, and normally it's in sort of the two hydrogens would be out here and the oxygen in the middle, and sort of you'd have a bunch of them orientated all around and so on. Well, every 20 hours or so, suddenly this thing goes, splits. The hydrogen will split off of the other oxygen and hydrogen. So you have an oxygen, hydrogen, OH, and a hydrogen. And they just split due to the ambient energies and the fields that exist through all of space. Sometimes these fields will interact and peak out. So instead of just going like this, there might be a peak in one place, and where that water molecule will hit the peak will hit it and it'll split apart. But within a couple of picoseconds, like, was it billionths of a second or something, they split apart and then they'll slam right back together again. So it happens so fast that scientists haven't even been able to measure it till just a couple of years ago, when they started being able to measure time scales into the picosecond and into that whole range, because before it just happened too fast and they had no idea. And so it's when you find out something like that water is able to split itself, to ionize itself, to basically, in effect, create its own light, you could say, then that's pretty amazing. It's just that it only happens to one molecule every 20 hours. So it's always happening in water. At any moment, there'll be thousands of these reactions going on with the splitting of water, but none of them will be significant. There's not enough heat given off by each individual reaction for it to be measured, really. If we could get all of the water to all do it at once, to separate into its two parts, even momentarily, it would probably give off a very large amount of energy. So all we have to do is train water. It's already doing the ionization thing and separating itself out into these two dynamics. It's so much tension there when that happens. It's a positive and negative. It just wants to slam back together again. So it's interesting, though, when they naturally come apart, what if we could put something in there that keeps them apart and store the hydrogen, the H plus, the OH minus, OH, you guys over on this side, H, you guys over on that side. Okay, next water, it spontaneously splits. And before it can slam back together, we put a barrier in, or we create a field perhaps, because one's a positive, one's a negative. If we have an electrical field, we should be able to split that hydrogen and oxygen naturally. When that split occurs, we should be able to pull them apart through just a small electrical charge, perhaps. Maybe that would be all it takes under the right circumstances. Over a period of time, you would build up this hydrogen and hydroxide in the two separate parts, and basically that's what makes a battery. Battery is just hydrogen atoms that have a charge and moving around back and forth. Sometimes electrons, depending on the situation. Jesus Jedi, you have a bunch of things in the chat here. Maybe I can read some of this.
I was just going to comment on Jedi. When you use hydrogen as in a torch, you've got different degrees of in a combustion. It won't burn your skin, but it'll reach those very high degrees in other materials.
Yeah, you can cut through virtually any hardened steel or different types of hard metals and everything else with the proper carbon torch, or sorry, hydrogen torch. But at the same time, it appears that you can, run it over your hand and not burn yourself. Very amazing concept.
It would be something like the GANs, because if GANs doesn't take a temperature either, it must be sort of a GANs torch.
GANs torch. Interesting idea. I was actually using a torch, oxygen and propane, oxypropane torch about a couple of hours, about 3 or 4 hours before the workshop began here, and cutting out some half-inch thick steel metal with it. And you essentially are using hydrogens and oxygens in order to cut with, and that's the whole idea. Usually you use oxygen and acetylene. Acetylene is high in carbon and hydrogen, but a very simple molecule. I think it's is it C4H2 or is it C6H3, something like that. Acetylene, you can look it up. Very basic carbon hydrogen type atom, or molecule rather. And when it combines with oxygen in what we call burning, then it provides pretty much the highest temperature that you can get with common materials with the oxygen acetylene. Now, I mentioned I was using oxygen and propane, which is a cheaper way to go and a little bit safer for carrying around and whatnot. But it's also lesser temperature, so it actually takes longer to heat up the parts and longer to do the cutting and that kind of thing. It doesn't have as much latent heat in the chemical structure. You could say its field strength was less than the field strength of the acetylene, which is the highest field strength commonly available substances that we can use for torches and to make fire as humans. So we like to make fire, control fire, melt things, and create different alloys and whatnot.
JD has just put that with the brown gas, you get water instead of heat. That's why maybe they use it in the combustion engine so it won't overheat the engine. And it produces a better explosion.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah, it's nice having water come out the tailpipe instead of a bunch of noxious, toxic gases. Trouble is, it's never 100%. And if you have, for example, if you're using it in an engine that has oil as its lubricant, then usually some of the oil will get burnt along with the perfect combustion of the HHO or even just hydrogen assisted combustion. So you'll get some of the oil molecules stuck to the sides of the combustion chamber where the piston's moving up and down, and it needs that lubricating film where the piston rings are sliding and the piston's moving up and down. And that when the explosion happens in the combustion chamber to push that piston down, then it'll tend to burn some of that oil on the cylinder walls. And if it's a sloppy fit with the piston and the rings on the cylinder walls, then that oil will tend to burn, and we see it as oh, that vehicle's got some blue exhaust, they must be burning oil, we say. And that's part of what happens. Even in a perfect fuel system, you can still end up burning some oil with it and have toxic byproducts. So if we could eliminate the whole friction and oil necessity, so much the better. Move away from all that.
Gotta remember what Verniers told us. Add some 200 cc's of coconut oil or
almond oil was the other one.
The oil, and it won't go black. So
not was it almond or was it
any natural oil?
Avocado oil, I think, was one.
Yeah, it's that one also. Yeah, avocado, palm, or coconut.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well, quite possibly, and definitely in a pinch it would work. You can use coconut water for blood transfusion, actually, if you need to as well. So coconut, if you're going to be in a survival mode, a coconut's probably a pretty handy plant to have around. You can use the oils, you can use the water, you can use the milk and the cream.
Your best transfusion is your own product. It's your own, it's metabolized, and it won't do you any harm. It's what's given you life before you were born.
Hmm.
Good morning, Nick.
Well, hello, Jalal. How are you doing?
I'm doing fine, thank you. How are you guys? What you discussed just today, what is the purpose of it? Matters?
Ideas.
Okay. Give you ideas in the matter state or in the strength state? Come, John, answer me, please.
Sorry, I wasn't listening to your comment. Could you repeat it? Because I was reading some comments on the chat.
Okay. Why Mr. Cash brought the CO2 box? For what? to produce CO2 books or to produce CO2 in gas state? What is behind this method?
Learning how to work with the fields.
And the strength of these fields, and how you going to work with it from the strength of the hydrogen, helium, and up to more than what we have in the periodic table of elements, 300, 400, maybe 1,000, and producing a new matters in that meaning. So you need to calculate everything. How you are managed to make the CO2? What is the numbers behind it? What is the environment? And how apply a different environment give you a different strength, different gases or different plasmas. This is the real thing. It's not about you are producing. Why until now, he said, until now, no one of you done the strength of vitamins. Is it hard? It's not hard. It's only if you know the strength. And from this, what he's teaching us, you subtract or you add. The CO2 books, the same CO2 books, you can produce gold. And we know that in the CO2 box, you will not get more than, what is the CO2, Rick? It is 44? No, not 44. What is the strength of
15?
CO2.
CO2 is 6 or 3 and 2. It's
32 and 16. It is...
no, 32 and 12, isn't it?
Carbon 12?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so 44.
Right, I think you had it right the first
it's considered
time.
a carbon 12.
Yeah, from
and oxygen and oxygen.
So from 44, you can produce 200. How? You change the environment. You add. So you need to understand these figures. Okay, from where you get the carbon? In the beginning, and what is the percent of the carbon in your plate? Which kind of coating you are using, and that you depend on which percent you have in your copper plate.
From amino acid,
sorry, in the beginning when you produce your nano-coated plate, what is the percent of the carbon in it? Did anyone ask? And Mr. Cash, he taught it. He said it's from 5 to 8% inside this plate. So if we go to the caustic coating, this is from, and the best caustic coating, it is from 5 to 8%. So you have strength of carbon from a 5 to 8. And if you use the torch, how many percent you have? I think, Rick, the torch is less than the caustic. Yes? Less nanolayers.
Yeah, I would say so.
So you will have less than 5%. And from there you can, because if you have from 5 to 8, you capture this kind of field, and this kind of field captured the amino acid of the same birds with birds. You see what is the difference here? Understanding what you are doing and make numbers. Study them, understand what is behind it. It's not about CO2. From CO2, you can go whatever you go because you change the environment. Sorry, I must work. This is something to think about only. Thank you, guys.
Okay, thank you, Jalal, for taking time out for your comments there. Appreciate it.
What happens when we nano-coat copper, irradiating it with heat, not with gas or chemically?
Well, I've done experiments with just heating on an electrical element, if that's what you mean, just heating copper that way.
And what results did you get?
Well, I tried with pennies in particular. It was quite interesting. Certain years of pennies are pretty much pure copper here in Canada. Same with the US in certain earlier years, I believe. And so you can line them up on a spiral electric element is what I did, and turn on the element, and you can see the pennies turning color the way the copper tends to turn color. Usually a whole rainbow set of blues and greens and purples and so on. Then it goes to that shiny silvery color. And then you have to cool it down. If it goes beyond the shiny silvery color, you can end up with a melted penny because it's getting closer to the melting temperature. And then you can either remove the penny and cool it down quickly, in which case the nano-coating will tend to flake off quite easily. It's almost like it looks like almost a flaky carbon sort of coating on it, but it's actually the copper. Or you can just let it cool more naturally and slowly, and it'll develop a fairly tough nano-coating similar to the coils and that kind of thing. Yeah, and you can, theoretically, you could add oxygen or something like that to the environment. I was trying to blow on it and do things like that, but basically there's enough oxygen in the environment and it interacts and creates the nano-coating quite well. And you can repeat it a number of times by heating and cooling again. Build up that nano-coating if you wish. I don't think it's as good of a nano-coating as the caustic method for most purposes, but it is fast and it is easy, and it works even on the burner of a stove.
In water environment, you have, for example, hydrogen, oxygen from water. You have, let's say, the same amino acid like in the air, but it's more in water environment when you have with caustic. No, you have natrium, you have hydroxide, you have hydrogen, you have oxygen. In the air, you have less natrium, sodium, a lot, I don't know, oxygen like amino acid, carbon in the air,
Lots of
nitrogen. It's another environmental proportion. It's different, much different in the water.
Yeah, that's why we create the conditions in the water with the fields to actually pull the CO2 from the atmosphere into the water. So that's how different and strong the field effects are.
When you see, yes, sorry.
Oh, well, I was just going to add, do we pull the CO2 from the air or the carbon from the air? That's another big question.
Where's the carbon in the air?
Not only carbon, like also oxygen.
Yeah.
Also, any kind of strength.
Where's the carbon in the air? You mean like carbon particles from air
Not in
pollution or anything?
not in matter state, like a strange, like a field, uh, not only particle. Because if you have hydrogen, you can consider it like carbon. If you have oxygen, you can't consider it like oxygen less one particle, one neutron. If you have nitrogen, oxygen, another particle, also it's translate in another element.
We've got Mr. Cohen in the air.
Yes,
Yeah.
when Jalal saying what is difference no of carbon in CO2, depend. You have from the amino acid, you have to from the water, you have from a bottle of plastic, you have from your neighborhood, you have from my fingers, you have another place from transfer this field in the water.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
You are making the fields of the carbon only in this kit. And in the presence of the oxygen in the water, it will convert to get to GANs, the same of the carbon. And then you will have a magnet to pull up this package of Mr. Cohen, because they are traveling together, carbon and oxygen and nitrogen and hydrogen.
I asking why Mr. Keshe, when considering the copper nanocoat, 69, and another plate of zinc, it's 60, I don't know, 5. It's considered 6 and not 12. 6, which means free deuterium, tritium, deuterium. I don't know, I don't recall. Or it's 6 from carbon, like a proton, electron, and neutron. Is so many ways to look in the same problem.
Yes, true. Can get confusing depending what system you use.
Hi guys, good morning. This is Stefano.
Hi, Stefano.
Hi Rick, how are you doing?
Good.
Me too, thank you. And I guess I was listening to the conversation. I guess the trick to the amino acid, I remember a long time ago was explained in a workshop that if I remember correctly, Mr. Keshe was saying that once you pull the carbon from the environment into the CO2 box, the trick is that the carbon isn't never alone because of its atomic properties. And because the environment is very full of nitrogen, then when the carbon comes into the environment of the water, the carbon comes with nitrogen attached to it, and then it combines to the hydrogen and oxygen of the water, and then comes the amino acids. If I remember correctly, was this the trick to the amino acid production?
It's passing from nitrogen or in oxygen and in the carbon, like in the leaf, in the photosynthesis.
Sorry?
It's like in the tree. Mr. Keshe is saying what's happening in the box
Yes.
or the photosynthesis in the leaf of plant. how is transfer the field, how is change the nitrogen into oxygen or in the carbon.
Because I guess that because of the nanoplate, there you have a plasmatic environment. So the plasma of all the elements amalgamates in a way that you have the amino acid strength on the surface of the water.
Yes, I think the surface of the water has important. It's an important factor. It's the interface, and the interface, if you look at it as a place where the molecules or the orientation of these particles can only go a certain way at that interface, because they're hydrogen or oxygen, in the case of the water, will either the hydrogen or the oxygen will be pointing up, and there'll be a difference in the charge and difference in the tension and so on between the water. So only, I forget whether it's the hydrogen or oxygen, will tend to point up, but only one of them will be pointing up at that surface of the water. Whereas inside the water, they could be pointing in all different directions, but everything gets lined up at that interface. And we also have heard before what's called easy water and structured water, which also occurs at that interface of either the air and water interface or the sides of the container, between the solid part of the container and the next layer of water that's right next to that solid part of the container, the wall of the glass or whatever, will be a special form of water. And it's structured in a particular way because of its orientation next to that interface.
For Stefano, this teaching is on the 17th of September 2015.
Yes, most probably yes, because I remember it was the first lesson of the year.
Yeah, it is on the 17th. And for the water, absolutely yes, because the water is GANs in the matter state. It's behaved in two ways. That's why he's pulling to the surface all these elements. So you need only to make the magnets for what you want, and you will achieve it.
Hola, buenas noches.
Hi, Fernando.
Gracias, Rick. Thank you. Gracias.
You have some comments here in the chat, but we'd have to translate it. John, can you help me with that?
Sure.
So about nitrogen and carbon.
Nitrogen created the carbon, and on the other side, it created the oxygen with the hydrogen. We got Mr. Cohen in the process to create nitrogen. The construction of English is the other way around as Spanish, so it's pretty complicated to get the concept. Well, basically, it's in the Cohen, we've got all the four elements. Now, if we think of the different elements being hydrogen at different levels, these concepts we've got to have in mind also, no? What is carbon? It's 6 hydrogens. Oxygen is 8, I think it was, and nitrogen is 7, or the other way around. The way the different hydrogens interact. Well, I think we always have to have these things in mind. I'll say this in Spanish for Fernando. Fernando, en el CON tenemos que tomar en cuenta que el hidrógeno en sus distintos niveles pasan a ser carbono, oxígeno y nitrógeno. No son elementos distintos, sino que son distintos niveles de hidrógeno. ¿Qué te parece?
Es una conjunción de los elementos a nivel universal. Ningún elemento actúa por sí solo.
Sí, están interactuando, yeah. It says that all elements are interacting between each other. No element works on its own. Especially in the colon, ¿no? Amino acids.
¿Sabes, John? A todo el mundo que nos está escuchando, la importancia de conocer la esencia de nuestra propia creación.
It says the importance here is to know the essence of our creation.
Esto ya no era una teoría en práctica o una teoría en la mente de las personas, sino era una práctica que se estaba llevando día a día con todas las personas de este planeta.
It says that this is not a theory, a man's theory. If not, it's what nature is continually producing in nature, in the process of our creation. Sí, adelante.
Preguntaba yo, porque alguna vez en mi vida me llegó esta pregunta: explícame la luz. Y me preguntó mi hermano hace algunos minutos: explícame la luz.
Está bien. He says that's one of the questions he put beforehand. What is light? And I wrote, yo te escribí a vos si has leído el segundo libro, porque ahí Keshe explica muy bien qué es la luz. Mr. Keshe, second book, explains very well what is light, what is the structure of light. En el segundo libro...
Puedes llamar a la luz conocimiento, y a la inteligencia, y al comprendimiento luz.
Son distintos conceptos. Según Keshe, la luz es un deterioro.
Es un residuo de la materia.
Exacto. No, es un residuo del rayo magnético, que no es lo mismo.
No es lo mismo, pero a un ser humano explícale la luz cuando se llega a la luz, el conocimiento al conocimiento.
Sí, pero son distintos conceptos. Una cosa es la iluminación y otra cosa es la luz. One thing is illumination and the other thing is light for the man. There are different concepts here. And also mentioned that the structure of light is produced from...
No quería quitar mucho tiempo al taller. Muchas gracias por la oportunidad. Pero durante siglos, durante milenios, el ser humano se ha planteado estas preguntas y las respuestas.
Sí, en especial los alquimistas. For thousands of years, man has always put these questions forward. What is enlightenment and what is light?
Desde Adán y Eva, la respuesta ha sido contestada. La pregunta era muy sencilla. ¿Qué es a lo que llamamos luz? Gracias.
It says, from Adam and Eve, we got it clear. What is light? Yeah, well, I would add, what is enlightenment? And Adam and Eve, not as persons, if not as different civilizations. Yo agregaría desde Adán y Eva, que son distintas civilizaciones, no son dos personajes.
Es para hablar de la tierra y al mundo, porque hay gente del mundo que entiende el Adán y el Eva.
Claro,
Sin embargo, tienes que explicarles a las personas antes y después del Adán y del Eva.
claro, bueno, pero vayamos al concepto de Adán y Eva, que son civilizaciones creadas por los Anunnaki o son
Taller número 66, acerca de la creación de la vida en la estructura física. Taller número 66, KSW, acerca de la creación de la estructura de la vida a nivel materia.
Ajá.
Adán y Eva se te explica desde el inicio de la creación. La pregunta era, a una persona que no sabe nada de este conocimiento, ¿cómo le explicas la luz?
Mr. Keshe in workshop number 66 teaches us about Adam and Eve and how can you explain about light to people that haven't got these concepts in mind? There's so much we have to look into. Hay tanto más que tenemos que leer y comprender.
El conocimiento, muchas gracias, John. Te agradezco en el alma porque eres mi comunicación del español al inglés, ¿sí? Mucha gente no ha comprendido la esencia de su propia creación cuando quiere investigar el mundo que hay fuera de él y que el ojo carnal no puede ver que hay dentro de sí mismo.
Y es lo que
Gracias,
estamos...
John.
Gracias a vos. He mentions that people still have to look into all these different concepts of light, enlightenment, and how man has to look inside himself and comprehend what Mr. Keshe is trying to teach us about knowing our own soul. I think this is a basic part of the whole study. We have to learn how to work with our original soul.
Esto lo leí hace muchos años. La luz se llega a la luz y la inteligencia a la inteligencia, el conocimiento al conocimiento. Y a veces no se comprende.
He mentions here in what is intelligence, enlightenment, comprehension, and knowledge. There are different concepts, and we have to start delving into these different concepts.
What were the four things again there, John? It was light and enlightenment.
Light and enlightenment are two different concepts. And then you've got intelligence and knowledge.
Llamemos a la luz conocimiento, porque se trata de entendimiento, se trata de conocer.
Claro, es decir, el concepto de luz ahí sería, ¿cuál era la palabra que usé antes? Iluminación.
conocimiento, la verdad. La luz se llega a la luz, el conocimiento al conocimiento, la verdad a la verdad.
Claro, el drama es quién tiene la verdad, ¿no? El supremo.
Es que en este mundo los seres humanos nadie estábamos equivocados.
Pero tienes que tener la certeza de que dispone de la verdad y nadie lo tiene.
Esa era la verdad que te hacía ser, era la seguridad que te imponía, no ante los demás, simplemente el comprender. El conocimiento se llega al conocimiento y la luz a la luz, la verdad a la verdad. Y a veces la razón no lo comprende.
Es cierto. Bueno, son discusiones filosóficas. It mentions that what I call philosophical discussions. What is light and enlightenment? What is knowledge? What is truth? Who has really the truth? The creator is the only one that possesses the truth as far as I can see. We all try to get hold of the truth, but we'll never really reach it, will we? Well, someday we will, but we'll be much nearer the creator.
Mr. Keshe ha mencionado acerca del tiempo de comunicación cero.
Sí, the zero communication, that would be the ideal point. Sí, sería el punto ideal de lograr la comunicación cero, ¿no?
¿Cómo es posible, John, que 7 años antes, para cada individuo, porque cada persona es diferente, es decir, cómo es que años antes tú estás recibiendo el tiempo de comunicación cero cuando sabes tu propósito en la vida? Gracias, John. Muchas gracias.
Gracias a ti. It mentions that normally we receive the zero communication 7 years beforehand. I don't really get what he's trying to say here, but well, all depends if we grasp the knowledge or we don't, or we're really convinced of these truths.
El mensaje no era fácil, John.
Ya lo creo, tenemos que cavilar bastante.
Pero tendríamos que llevar el mensaje a las personas.
Sí, sí, todos tenemos que cavilar muchísimo con referencia a todos estos conceptos. We really got to get down to cavilating, thinking of all these different concepts of truth and zero communication and what have you.
Gracias, John. Gracias, Rick. Y gracias a la Fundación. Yo estoy con ustedes.
Gracias a ti.
Thank you, Fernando, for your comments.
Good day, Mr. Arno. Can I share something about light?
Sure.
We all know what light is. It's the reaction of the action of friction in the matter world, but in the plasma world it's the same. As the fields creating friction, you get light. And I see it as a liquid crystallization because you have like a vein, the lights try to create through the density of the environment, and then it creates like the big light, but the light also gets fractions to the size of the light. When you watch to the stars, you see it. When you watch to the light, you see it. You see like a snowflake around it. And different stars have different snowflakes around it because the entity is a little bit different. So light we know. Enlightenment. Enlightenment is receiving and giving to the soul, because when you give to the soul, to the others, and when you receive to the soul, you can, and you receive from the higher source, you always receive truth. But our matter brains cannot comprehend that in the right order, but at the most people, and it will change. But that is enlightenment. And the other two, I did not understand good. Okay. Maybe that was the question of the Spanish guy, right? It was a question what he asked, right? What was the difference between light and enlightenment and the other two? Okay, thank you.
I put that question in because he was talking about the light, and I told him that there is a big difference between light and enlightenment.
Yeah, of course, because the enlightenment is the soul. When we evolve, we don't see the humans anymore at the end. We only see souls. Like, look to all the old biblical and all the old knowledge of one God with the paintings. Don't look to the painting, only look to the spheres around the head. Then you see what the message is in the paintings, in the church and everywhere. Because we look to the humans, we are meta-stage, but if you don't look to the humans, and you look to the light around the heads of the humans and how they feed one to manifest, because they trust that one with their soul. They energize that one soul in the middle. And the one soul in the middle is going to be the giver upstairs from the galaxy that we are collecting and gathering together, of souls. And then it's going to be, just like yesterday, it's going to the North Pole, to the South Pole of our galaxy. Because that's also one entity what we are creating. Like the church creates God, we're creating our spaceship. Because the gods, they pray in mosques and in churches, they make it the human. And it isn't he wants this, he wants that, fear, blah, 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 blah. But that's not true. Because we created that one. We go to the church, we go to pray, we do the same now, right? We feed the plasma bank. And when you need some manifestation to help some others, some people can use the plasma bank. But actually, we all have the same plasma bank. We are all one. Yeah. Okay, thank you.
It's interesting, those concepts of the light around the heads of the paintings. Yeah, the way the different civilizations have seen what enlightenment or light is, really.
You know the apple? In some churches, you see old man. He has holding a round sphere, some kind of machine. It's also in a game like Assassin's Creed. We see only the killing, but if you look to the true story in the game, they go to the arena to an ancestor. And he was like a guardian from the church, or like an Assassin's Creed, or different kinds, in different times, in different time lapse. And then you see it's only to retrieve that machine, the apple. But they're searching for a machine, but it is not a machine, it's a soul. But if we know like when we got enlightenment by eating the fruits of knowledge, it is not an apple tree, it's knowledge. We also saw everything what could go wrong. And then our intention creates all the things that could go wrong, because we were not ready to be with the knowledge yet. And so all things start to collapse, like now we are growing again. Yeah. Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Yes, we've got to get down to the zero time transfer of knowledge. So let's wish we get this as soon as possible.
If you go to sleep to learn, to help the others. If you walk outside, you think about things to help others. I think that's zero time communication, because someone in your experience have some problems, and you're walking in your work or in your life, whatever you do, you are thinking about it, you're feeling it. But how you think about it, you can support one if he can accept it or she can accept it. But not everybody accepts it. And because we want to, normally when we want to help someone, we want the other to take it. And that's the wrong decision we make. We cannot own the soul of the other, so you cannot push to take. If you release it, the soul take it when that soul is in the right position, in the right wish state, through his experience, and then he starts seeing these things normally. Now we can learn from the knowledge, but I still think there is a little spiritual journey in your own life experience needed, because you can have knowledge, but if you don't have the spirit, but if you have the spirit, you don't have knowledge, there is only a level till where we can get, and then we get to the next level. Then most of the time we get to the next level on the spirit side, normal, because I'm not taught at school in the way it's supposed to be. But if you grow with like some people who learn so much, they know everything about only a cluster of science. They know knowledge, but they mostly don't rely on their own experience and the old soul, because they learn to memorize everything, and then they are stuck. That was why I was at school. I came to a teaching, and when I was a child with the professor and watching what the professor was doing, he could not find out for 7 years. The child was one day with the professor, and he saw what the professor needed, and he gave it to the professor. But it was totally the other direction, because it's like we all walk when we want to achieve one thing. It's like we walking in a tunnel and only see the light at the end of the tunnel, but not see the light around us. We are approaching like we're going on one direction, and when there is a child, it goes the other way, and it is there. Yeah, that was why a long time ago, philosophy, when you have professors, you need children around. Not children from 3 or 4 in the lab, but children who can behave and who want to support. There are enough if they know they have the chance, and then the professor gets new direction, and then it's going to be there. Yeah, children are free because they watch multiple sides, and when we are like a klonken in our being, in the experience being, we are only one-minded. Yeah. But I see here it's not true. Here everybody looks his own way, and we share it, and everybody looks to the ways of the others. And if you see someone don't understand, you see it in front of you, and you give it or explain it, or yeah. Okay.
Okay, thank you. See, go ahead. Is there someone who wanted to speak here? I see there's a couple more attendees. I'll promote you as well. Just read a comment, the last comment from Jedi in the chat here. He mentions, going back to the teaching of the ancient ones, the concepts that we are using are not precise at all. That is why we cannot give an answer to abstract questions. Precise questions can be solved using the globality of the gradients positioned in the right order. This list is not shared by those who are not interested in answers. This is a kind of teaching that schools never shared with the external worlds. Esoteric and mystical teachings are usually shared with spiritual beings, as materialistic people would not understand them, and these could create confusion.
Rick, ¿me permites un minuto?
Go ahead.
Gracias.
Gracias, John.
Te escucho.
Gracias. Hace algunas semanas Yo estaba comentando acerca del electrón, del protón y del neutrón. Y quiero aclarar una cosa, que cada uno de nosotros en este planeta nos hemos vuelto parte de una estructura universal. Cuando yo mencioné a Rick acerca del electrón, no lo mencioné por una cosa mala, nada de eso. Lo mencioné porque había leído en los libros acerca de los viajes espaciales y del agujero negro. Ahora este conocimiento, esta comprensión nos da la amplitud para comprender en todos los idiomas.
Fernando, dai la possibilità di a John di tradurre.
Sí, son cosas muy profundas. Fernando is telling us that a few weeks ago we talked about the neutron, proton, and electron. And
Bien, I'm
sí,
sorry.
sí,
I'm sorry.
voy a
No me
repetir.
no me quiero ir muy profundamente. Solamente mencionar que el ser humano ha llegado a la capacidad para comprender su estructura actual y los viajes en el tiempo.
Fernando, non ti scusa, non ti perdonare. È per for understanding, for entiendo todos quello che dici.
El tiempo actual, escúchame muy bien en español y en inglés lo que tengo que decir.
Sí,
El conocimiento actual ha llegado a los profetas y a los mensajeros del pasado, del presente y del futuro. Gracias a cada uno de nosotros, gracias a cada uno de los que hacemos posible todo este trabajo, porque no ha sido fácil, pero gracias a ustedes que se ha entendido todo este conocimiento para la elevación del alma de las personas que viven en este planeta. No se trataba de una persona, solamente de un conocimiento, no se trataba solamente de la tecnología, ni de Mr. Keshe, no se trataba solamente de eso. Pues que las personas en este tiempo han alcanzado el conocimiento de los mensajeros del pasado y es nuestra responsabilidad llevarlo al mensaje del alma que las personas necesitaban escuchar, entender. Gracias, John.
Yo agregaría comprender. Yes, this knowledge we are giving to people now is the knowledge that we have to comprehend and which was being given to us by different masters in history. And we really got to get down to comprehending all this and give this knowledge to people to be able to know their souls, or comprehend or get in contact with their own souls.
El conocimiento de los profetas del pasado ha alcanzado a las personas del presente y pueden concebir el futuro.
The knowledge previous masters and prophets has reached us, and so now we have to comprehend it and be able to give it towards the people in the future.
El conocimiento era tuyo, los sueños eran tuyos, todas las metas fueron tuyas. Nada que no pueda concebir el ser humano desde su alma a través de sus emociones y sentimientos. Nada que no pueda concebir el ser humano a través de sus emociones y sentimientos los puede manifestar ahora en este presente.
Yo te puedo decir, Fernando, tendrías que estudiar inglés y poder manifestar todas tus ideas y conceptos en inglés. Lo lamento, pero bueno, it's not easy to translate all the concepts he's trying to give us. We have to comprehend, study, listen to all these concepts that different masters in history have given us, and give them towards man nowadays, so we can construct the future with all this new technology.
Los sueños son tuyos, John, Rick y cualquier persona que nos esté escuchando en este planeta. Realmente hemos concebido lo que es la esencia de tu propia creación.
The dreams are ours. Each one of us has their own dreams, and this is part of the knowledge of our creation, and that's what we have to teach.
El propósito principal del alma es crear la paz.
The most important thing is to create peace. Yes, I think that's his.
Eso era lo más importante para los individuos en este planeta. Hubo un rey que te pintó dos estructuras.
¿A qué rey te refieres? There was one king that pictured these ideals.
Esta es la tarea de cada uno, encontrar la paz de cada uno. Gracias, John. Muchas gracias a todos y seguimos en contacto. Mañana tenemos un taller. Muchas gracias. Y recuerda muy bien y a todos y a todas las personas de este planeta, cuando encuentres la paz contigo mismo, encontraremos la paz con todos los demás.
Last words is, the moment we reach the peace with oneself, we will reach the peace with everybody else.
Thank you. Gracias, John. Gracias, Rick. Gracias a todo el mundo que está escuchando todo este mensaje, porque realmente son más de 20 años de conocimiento para resumirlo en una simple síntesis. El amor estaba dentro de ti, la creación estaba dentro de ti, y eres la manifestación del Creador delante de ti y eres tú mismo.
Fernando, perdóname cortar. La frase corte por traducir John, porque si perde la traducción cuando es mejor parol. Cuando tú hablas, frase corte. John traducir e tutto il tuo messaggio e trasferir correctamente. Gracias.
Yes, Dan, this is not easy. Dan quiere decir que cuando hablas, haz oraciones cortas para que yo te las pueda traducir, así no se pierden las ideas, es más fácil de poder concebirlas.
Ok, va la frase corta de 1 hora de conocimiento. Lo único que se parece a la elevación del alma es entender la venida del mensajero. ¿Entendiste el mensaje?
Repítemelo, porque tiene muchos conceptos ahí. Adelante.
Lo único que se parece a la elevación del alma es comprender la llegada del mensajero.
The only thing that's like the knowledge brought by the messenger is the enlightenment of our soul.
Taller número, si quieren anotar, taller número 134 acerca de la elevación del alma.
Workshop number 134 is the elevation of our soul.
El único ser que pudo elevar su alma a través de las emociones
The only person that elevated his soul through his emotions ¿quién fue? ¿Mr. Keshe o quién? ¿A quién te refieres?
La pregunta está dentro y la respuesta está dentro de ustedes. Yo ya llegué al mensaje para comunicárselo.
It says the message is in our own soul. We have to delve into this.
La respuesta estaba dentro de ustedes, aminoácidos.
The answer is in you. You are amino acids.
Taller número 66 acerca de la estructura física, 202 acerca de la elevación del alma, 209 atiende este conocimiento, porque no se trataba de una estructura física, sino la elevación del alma.
This is in the different workshops Mr. Keshe has given us. Number 66, 202, and 209. All about the structure of our soul.
Ahora comprendes la estructura de tu propia creación.
Now you understand la propia creación.
Cada uno de nosotros es un creador de vida desde el momento que puedes dar vida, desde el momento que eres un hombre, desde el momento que eres una mujer. Taller número 170, a través de la concepción, de la vida, del posparto, acerca de la incomprensión, de la estructura de la mujer. John, no vamos a acabar.
È perduto, John. Corto, corto, Fernando, corto, per tradurre.
Taller número 66, número 202, please. Gracias.
Sì,
Knowledge
Okay, are we going anywhere with the conversation here, or are we just philosophizing on some of the things that Mr. Keshe has said, or where are we going with this? Do you want to take the conversation somewhere, or are we just going around in circles? We're not getting much English back. It's very hard for people to follow what's going on. So,
Rick,
wrap it up here
sorry,
soon.
interrupt you. I'm sorry. Fernando is right. He's spoken right message. I understand very well what they say. John also. It's about the who find the strength in the soul for understanding the message is reach to illuminate the light. If I understand Ben well.
Gracias.
Okay, well, that's good. Thank you for sharing that.
¿Sabes? Rick se vuelve una parte importante acerca de todo este conocimiento.
Rick, it's one piece of puzzle very important from this knowledge. Sorry, John.
Si no, I'm sorry, lo siento. Cada uno de nosotros somos tan importantes para llevar este conocimiento.
Everybody is important from this knowledge, from this understanding.
No podemos dejar a ninguno al lado. Cada uno forma parte de la estructura del conocimiento universal.
The angle another or in this structure. Sorry.
Esto es, cada uno es importante.
Each is important.
Fernando, creo que es suficiente lo que nos has tirado hoy. Déjanos cavilar un poco en todos los conceptos. Y nos vas a hacer una ensalada en la cabeza.
Gracias. I'm sorry, lo siento, pero
gracias a cada uno de ustedes. Gracias a cada uno de ustedes. Este conocimiento está llegando a más personas. Y no cómo esto está impactando la vida de cada persona. Gracias, John. Gracias, Rick. Gracias a todas las personas que están traduciendo y conociendo esto.
It's touching life from everybody. Thank you, Rick. Thank you, everybody, for translating, help me. Thank you, Fernando.
Gracias a todos. Gracias.
Okay, well, thanks to Dan and John and Fernando for that interchange. It sometimes takes some translating of the translation even to try to find some common language between us. So it can be difficult, but we try to be patient and we welcome your thoughts. Thank you. Does anybody else have something to say about that or something else they'd like to bring up?
Hello, I want to show some experiments I have done.
Okay.
To create, can I share video?
Yes.
With my phone.
Is it your video or is it a YouTube?
What I want to show is what is now in my house. I want to do it live. I see a camera on the...
Yeah. So you want to show your camera, right? I think I have to do something special here. Just a second. There we go. That should work. And just to make sure I can do that. So you should be able to start your camera there. Let me stop the share, and that'll allow that to happen. We see you right now.
Hi.
Hello.
Turn them over to the other cam. Yes.
There's your other camera. Yeah. Let me get it pinned here and spotlighted. Okay. Oops, I think the camera image froze. Still there, Arno? Yeah, Arno, I'm not hearing or seeing your picture other than a still picture right now. Seems like you might have a bandwidth problem. Oh, I just saw your picture briefly. Maybe if you try again, it might come through. Okay, I'm not. Excuse me, I'm not hearing you. But oh, now I hear something.
I forgot to take. I listened with a small box, and I forgot to take it with me. Kijk, look. I have created this. It's going to be like here. It's going an open circle above and below. But for me, it was to create the interaction between this one and this one, creating here the new one. And this one is going to feed this one. And this one is going to there to feed this one. But it's not ready yet. But that is so I learn how light falls. And now I want to go to my new project. I started last week because my drawings, I put it on the power.
Not so quick, not so quick.
Yeah, try to be very still with your camera. Otherwise, people get kind of nauseous from it.
Sorry, I was walking to the other room, but I have to put the power because my battery is with 5 minutes down. Here I create. Look, you see the shafts? You see that? The shafts?
The what again? What do you call it?
This is new. Kijk, look. It's going to be 5.
How it makes shape.
And if I put like this, 2, you see, I can create like the spaceship in the jar. This one is going outside, and because the middle is the outside, the North Pole or the South Pole. The middle is the North Pole. The second is the South Pole. The second is not the evener, but the other circle above on the northern side. The 5th circle I'm going to create is the circle on the south side, the 4th, and then the 5th is going to be the equinox. And because, look, if I fill them all with the same Gans, you see, then you have different fields and they attract each other upstairs.
Why not this start?
And if the outside is... Sorry?
Why not a star? Because you create the ring, layer ring, in the same plan.
I want to create free plasma without containments, with half containment maybe, that the core is matter state. I only with the foundation for 1 year, so I don't develop much Gans yet. But I see it like you remember when you wash your Gans the first time, you always see the spaceship inside, right? You see all the layers. And when you look to the old, I don't know where, I think it was what we were talking about yesterday, there's a piece of ruins is open and you see also the bell of the universe inside. But there inside, I think in the early days, the free plasma was created with containment on big scale. But you understand, when I have this like this, wait, I put it like this, then you understand it better. and I put this like this, you see the dimension, but they are in a chat, they are like this. You see?
Stop a little bit the imagine in this manner.
Kijk, and then I have in the core, I have 3. It can go to the northern hemisphere. Kijk, it can go to the northern hemisphere, go back to here. Here it's going to react with the equinox, but not in the start. It's going down, it's going in again, but the other layers are in there too. And the other layers are going to be in between, but you see the highest is outside. It's falling inside and becomes the first one inside, and then it goes up, and then we go here, and then we have here the highest, and inside we have the lowest again. So we can then here is going to be an interaction again. It will pull. It creates here the antimatter factor, what is in every particle with the lesson of the PM-TICs. And I think if it were running when I'm finished, because I already recreate much more from buckets, you see, and I do like this one below, I do one here, I have my GANS container, and I have my nano layer upstairs from the GANS. And then the fields are going to feed the GANS is going to feed the nano layer, and then we have rotation in the dimension of the egg shape. But I started wrong. And you see this? This one I'm going to fill up. And inside it can get closer. I try. You see? But this one is wrong, what I make now, because I don't have room to put the GANs. This was only with part of a wire, nano wire with nano layers, and then working from outside with feeding. But then I saw the new to work with the layers inside, so I have my GANS container to extract the fields, fed by the fields again, to fed the nano layer again. And I think if the rotation is right, and the light is there, it will also attract the light of the universe. Because in my dream, when my arm starts firing up, every blackness starts giving light. From the blackest black, light fall to my hand. I stopped because I thought, uh-oh, for one moment. But it's the same. So if it's running, I think we can get the pieces out without harming the plasma. Because through the working, the condition is, the outside is also nano-coated, while plasma is, everything is nano-coated. And then you can take it out without harming the plasma. And then you have a plasma of 5 entities. And all the entities exist from 3 entities. That was what I saw in the jar, and that was what my drawing was about last week. And this was for me to show you, like, so other people get inspired too. And I have only one small project. Watch. I only use paper and CH3 because I want to show, look for a friend who was making gold GANs. I told him not to throw the cups away. Maybe he can recreate this too.
Arno, you got to hold the camera steady because it's just I can't even look at it anymore. It's bouncing. Please hold it steady because it goes all fuzzy when you don't hold.
I'm excited. Sorry, I was forgotten.
I know. There you go. That's better. Thank you.
You see it? And this is CH3 with paper.
Can you? Oops, I think he. Now it's steady. That's better, Arno. No, I think he cut out. Something happened, Arno, and your signal has stopped.
Now he's steady. Okay.
Finally, we have a clear picture. Just hold it there, Arnold. Perfect. You're doing really good.
It's interesting to see the gans in the middle. It's formed a body on itself.
Yeah, I can start to look at it now and see some of the details. It's almost like a ring formed in the bottom there in a way. Gans ring. So he's saying, what was he saying? There was CH3 GANs in the cardboard? Is that what it was?
Esto es importante.
He uses paper there somewhere or other. I don't know how he works.
Yeah, paper or cardboard or something. And the CH3 GANs, I think, was embedded in it. I don't know, you have to direct us here. See if you might have to reconnect in order to...
his battery must have died.
Oh, right, yes, he's got a 5-minute limit, so... Okay, speaking of 5 minutes limits, we probably only have 5 minutes or so here because I'd like to close before Gatua's meeting, actually, and thanks for the reminder, John, about that. I was just looking at the schedule, and Gatua's, I think, comes up in another 15 minutes here.
Yes, you're right. Sorry for me making those exclamations, but I think we have to respect also Gatua. He does a marvelous work. Yeah,
absolutely. Well, people are welcome to leave here, go there anytime. It's a private teaching for agricultural, and there's probably not too many people here that are involved in that anyway. But in any case,
also telling us it's the future. We've got to delve into the agriculture because it's what can pick up the human civilization right now.
John, excuse me, para todos, me disculpan. John, ¿podemos explicar esto con el caldito de pollo?
Sí, esto lo tendríamos que dejar para otro curso, porque justamente estamos comentando de terminar el curso hoy, porque dentro de unos minutos empieza Gatua con su agricultura.
Gracias, John.
Gracias. Sí, disculpa.
Bueno, sí, no te preocupes. El mensaje era simple. Cada persona hace un caldo de pollo diferente, incluso sus mamás.
Pardon me, what's going on here? What's Fernando talking about?
He wasn't to talk to, but the basic concept he's putting through is that each mother produces a different chicken soup. Each one produces a different GANs, a different product, and we're all learning from all this.
Yes, right. We wanted to know from Arno about the paper, or Arno, what was in the in your was it paper or cardboard that you put CH3 GANs in? I think you said.
Yeah, with amino.
With amino acid.
Yeah, and it was to try to heat my house. On YouTube, I create with 5 information to energize the iron plate I have from a friend of mine. But I stopped it because when I used that, my house was good warm. With the door open, outside it was very low, and inside it was 18 degrees hotter. But because the iron I used to create the friction inside to keep the warmth to convert it to a metal heat, it also create like the food tower a high iron density. Because I understand how to use my Equinox to change it and lose it, it did not harm me very much. At that moment, it was not nice. But then, because my friends on YouTube always share movies to share knowledge and so,
he shared how to make gold cans, and I wanted to help him not to throw the cup away, because you have always the layer in the cup or in the bottle. If it's a straight bottle, you always have the layers where the water was stopped. And then you have already your reactor, because when you take the water out and you cut the bucket away from the layer where the water stopped, where there was the nano layer created, you already have your reactor, your reactor of that field, of that strings. And I work with 3 in the bucket, and on the surface I create the fields between right on the surface. Then some matter starts growing, like white snowflakes. In the beginning I thought it was alive because it was self sufficient. It stays like it was. But then after a while, when it's going around outside the field, it stops growing and then it stops living. But it's like I see it when the 3 fields hit, or the 2 fields hit, and one is going in between, and it is captured. It has to release, and then it releases in its own equinox, and it is like the equinox of that is like North Pole to South Pole, because I have my how do I not North Pole to South Pole, but North Pole to South Pole for my CH3, the Equinox reactors, and then you get like a spiral going to the barrier of that field, and it's going to be filled with some carbon wire. Yes.
Prepare yourself that you teach what you done here.
What did I achieve?
Prepare yourself to teach.
Yeah, I'm doing. That's why I'm talking so much. I think I'm already teaching from the side. And I'm happy.
Make a time with the teaching group, and make a full session, 1 session, 2 session, like Alex did or the other did in the private teaching.
Cool. Yeah, but we talk about it later. You help me with directing me in the right order, Jalal, please.
Yes, why not? We will talk later.
You know why I think it's carbon wire? When I have the field in the water, it's not working, but when I have it on the surface of the water, it starts. And I know there's Keshe Foundation in Holland, in Amersfoort. I think maybe I bring it there. Maybe this is where the ferries make the harness with before the new age of human. Because I think all those old stories are true. Like the dust, you can't shoot through. You can't put a knife through, but it's light as feather. It is also, I think, like some kind of carbon wire. But I did not dry it yet. It is I tried to dry it. I watch what the properties are. If I think it's useful, I'm gonna send it or bring it for further understanding. Because this is very easy to create. And if it's like the same as nanowire, but then in the white, we don't have to need a big oven to make it anymore. Because I think when you don't need force to create things. Like we create fake diamonds in the power oven with pressure. I think it's not needed, because I want to show something. I needed potassium. I used charcoal in the first time, and the charcoal I did not throw away. I use Foley. And then nano Foley. I make a circle. I put it in and put the jar away. I think I'm going to watch later what's happened. But is my video working? Yes, good. I can't fall out now because I'm
not seeing the video right now. Or I think maybe if I stop sharing, it might help here. Just a sec. Okay. You only have a couple more minutes here, so do what you can. Just a minute here. We see you there now, and there's your other one.
I like the particles to dance, and then you can see it. Oh, the camera is not seeing it. But I was concrete driller, And I see the same particles in the air was on my sawing blades. But they created industrial diamonds to create saws, but concrete saw. And it seems that the small particles, like
what are you trying to show here? Could you show? Focus
it's
on.
not working.
Well, we can see the image, or I see. Okay, there we go.
You see, it's my phone has problem with the plasmatic field. The camera is not good anymore. Very good. I can't grow it, open it further. But you have to put the light on, then you see all the, like when you look in a diamond, only on very small fragments floating through the air.
Right.
I cannot show it, sorry. This was what I think I put aside and can watch after. I put my cam out. And I thought then after it, I can learn from it, because I had the feeling I was very late to start with this knowledge, and everybody has already years and years in front of me. And then I think I don't want to throw anything away. I put it away, I watch what happens. And I put the polarization from the front to the right, to the back, to the left. Counter rotation. Maybe that's also why this is happening. I don't know for sure. Okay, I try to next time to make more clearly, and when I create a new one, it's also clearer to show you, because then I can position it, and then it's, you know, the carpet. When you see the 5 light beams, but they are not on the same road. The outsides are in the middle, and the insides are upstairs and downstairs on the carpet. It is the blueprint of what I saw in my drawing, how the plasma has to capture himself. I think when I finish that, I think I'm gonna share it with you. I already share it with you, but I'm gonna bring it because I'm not able to load it, and other people can maybe go further with it, because I first have to learn how to make all the GANs still. I see the light, I see my soul, I can do many things, but I want to understand this technology so I can use this technology also to reach others.
Well, congratulations on getting excited about it and taking it so far as you have, and you say you've been at it for about a year. That's you're making good progress, so that's important.
Thank you. But maybe I make progress because I came to help everybody else too.
Yeah.
Because all the knowledge of the science is already in the public, what I get from it, and I have my own knowledge, and then I saw, wow, finally someone who can have created his environment, like he can share it with everybody. I never could do that. I see it, but I'm not physicus. But I see how light works. I see how fractions of light work, because that is why the painter uses every drop in every paint, and then it's naturally. I tried it with colors long time ago, and those were the neon colors, and the camera can't film it. But for our eyes, it's easy, because I use it from every bucket. In the other buckets, a little drop of every each. And in this science is the same. When I start creating GANs, I cried. I did tears. I put inside, not for myself, but because I cried for the suffering of human, that it has to be done. We don't have to suffer. I'm finished suffering, and I hope everybody else gets the time they are finished suffering. So this is going to be the heavenly garden again. And the house of justice, because only the house of justice creates the heavenly garden. And not justice in a way, you're bad. No, justice in a way that we are all equal. And that if someone is damaged, we have to repair him, like E.T. You know what I mean? That is justice. It's not justice, oh, he steal a bread, chop his hand off, or like that. Or That is not justice. It's justice if you go to look, why did he steal the bread? Can you help him so he don't have to steal bread anymore? That's yeah. And then we get equality and we get peace. But elimination without enlightenment, there is no global peace. Because then we cannot be the individual of the totality. Now we are all individual. And the people who don't understand it don't want to be a totality. They think, okay, I lose myself to become one. But you don't lose yourself. You'll be your own dimension in the totality.
You become more of yourself in a way.
Yes, like the oneness I talked last week about. It's like you're not you are in control of yourself in that factor, but you aren't in control of what you are allowed to do. You are allowed to do that, but that you cannot do because that hurts someone else. And often when we too materialized, we don't see that part and we're going for our own gain. And then we de-elevate the other, but by that we de-elevate ourselves too. And now we are elevating the other, so we are elevating ourselves. Yeah.
Right on. Thank you, Arno.
Thank you for the opportunity. Thank you, Rick.
Okay, I'm going to wrap things up for today here. So in reference to Gatwa's class starting and so on. I see Jay has a question here about the Tesla turbine, and yeah, you can. There's information on that. If you look up the there's a power knee, what's called the knee, KNEE, with the Tesla turbine, where it reaches a certain speed and then it becomes more efficient over a certain speed, and everything sort of kicks in and the way it goes. So it's called the knee, a power knee. It'll have low power at low RPM, then suddenly kick in and the power goes up exponentially or whatever. Anyway, beyond our conversation now, we're going to end the class for now. But thank you once again, everybody, for attending here. Is there any other announcements or anything that anybody would like to say before we go here?
If it's possible, like yesterday night, be my magnet.
Be your magnet?
Yes. I don't know if you understand what I say, but Ursula surely understand what I want to say.
Well, you mentioned, I think, about Carolina being a magnet.
Yes, but I want also you and anybody else be my magnet.
Okay. Yep.
Thank you, Rick, for everything. And from everybody.
Hello, Rick. Hello.
Oh, hi. Yeah, Jabani, how are you doing?
Fine, fine. May I say that be my magnet will be why I think? Maybe my intention before. It is question, please.
I'm not understand very clear. Repeat.
Yeah, could you say it again, please?
Be my
magnet.
You say be, you know, in communication line, if I want somebody make something, I first send intent before speak or before talk with you. If I send intent before talk with you, my intent, you will act like my intent. So be my magnet, will I say that magnet will be like to capture something. Then I send intent before I speak. Can I say this?
Signora Carolina, tell you from everybody. If you put 10 million of magnets in the table, yes, and you put one finger from one magnet and move it this magnet, because making this experiment, all magnets is reposition, is moving. When Mr. Carolina moving, everybody else is reposition. When Rick is moving, everybody else in surrounding, in turn, is moving. Okay. Is reposition. Okay. This is about. My wish is everybody be a magnet. Okay. Thank you.
All right, be a magnet. Be a magnet for the plasma teaching. Well, I think we better wrap it up here and let Gatwa continue and everything else. So if anybody has anything they want to present in the Knowledge Seekers Workshop, you can get a hold of me and I can help you present that, make sure it's cleared for copyright and so on. And we have to present it to Mr. Keshe and he has to okay it and that kind of thing. So try to get it in as soon as possible if you do have something to present. And what else? I think that's about it for now. I think there's something else we... Dan, did you have something that you wanted to announce? Was there any announcements from your end?
No, I remember what Mr. Carolina said yesterday. One minute of silence for reaching the others. Only this.
Could you say that again? I only caught part of that.
If you possible, I don't know if you right or not, but I feel it's right. 1 minute of silence for reaching soul of everybody.
Oh, I see. Mm-hmm. Okay. Well, that would be fine. So we can do that now. Let's start that now. 1 minute of silence for reaching the soul of everybody. And we'll start that now. Okay, well, thank you everybody for attending the Keshe Plasma Reactor Group for Wednesday, November 21st, 2018. And keep experimenting, keep trying things, keep thinking, and keep on your toes out there. and be present and pay attention. And we'll see you next week. And bring your prize projects and fun devices, and we'll have a look at them here. Okay, thanks for the interesting discussions and other languages and points of view. Thanks to everybody. Thanks to we, as Jalal likes to say. Thanks to we.
Thank we. Good day, everybody. All night.
All right, I will end the live stream.